All right, let's start off this episode. We're going to be in Exodus chapter 28, and there's 43 verses in this chapter. But before we get started, I'm sorry. By this point in the year, we're supposed to be in a whole nother book doing a whole nother thing. I had a whole plan about it. But at this point in time, surprise, we're still in Exodus. And I apologize. That's all on me. I should have done better with keeping up with the podcast. Being a college student is not the easiest profession to obtain and to keep, actually. So forgive me for that. But I'm about to graduate, so that's the good news. So anyway, we're going to be in Exodus chapter 28, and there's a few interesting things in this chapter. Mainly, it is talking about, entirely it's talking about priests and their clothes. What do priests wear is what you should be thinking about before you read this chapter. And you can answer that question. Leave a comment down below. What do priests wear? What do you imagine a priest should wear? Somebody who's a pastor or who walks for God, what should they wear? Should they dress modestly? Should they be wearing a tank top? Should they always wear a suit? Let me know. So let's get right into this chapter on the Christian Boy Podcast. Our memory verse for the week comes from John chapter 8, verse 36, and it says, "If the Son sets you free, therefore you will be free indeed." Chapter 28. Have your brother Aaron with his sons come to you from the Israelites to serve me as priest. Aaron, his sons Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. Make holy garments for your brother, for glory and beauty. You are to instruct all the skilled craftsmen, whom I have filled with a spirit of wisdom, to make Aaron's garments for consecrating him to serve me as priest. These are the garments that they must make: a breastpiece, an ephod, a robe, a specially woven tunic, a turban, and a sash. They are to make holy garments for your brother Aaron and his sons, so that they may serve me as priest. They should use gold, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and fine linen. They are to make the ephod of finely spun linen embroidered with gold, and with purple, blue, and scarlet yarn. It must have 2 shoulder pieces attached to its 2 edges so that it can be joined together. The artistically woven waistband that is on the ephod must be of 1 piece, according to the same workmanship of gold, of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and of finely spun linen. 2 onyx stones and take 2 onyx stones and engrave on them the names of Israel's sons. 6 of the names on the first stone, and the 6 remaining names on the second stone, in order of their birth. Engrave the 2 stones with the names of Israel's sons as a gem cutter engraves a seal. Mount them surrounded with gold filigree settings. Fasten both stones on the shoulder pieces of the ephod as memorial stones for the Israelites. Aaron will carry their names on his 2 shoulders before the Lord as a reminder. Fashion gold filigree settings and 2 chains of pure gold. You will make them of braided cord work and attach the cord chains to the settings. You are to make an embroidered breastpiece for making decisions. Make it the same workmanship as the ephod. Make it of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and of finely spun linen. It must be square and folded double, 9 inches long, 9 inches wide. Place a setting of gemstones on it, 4 rows of stones. The first row should be a row of carnelian, topaz, and emerald. The second row, turquoise, a sapphire, and a diamond. The third row, a jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row, a beryl, an onyx, and a jasper. They should be adorned with gold filigree in their settings. The 12 stones are to correspond to the names of Israel's sons. Each stone must be engraved like a seal, with one of the names of the tribes of Israel, of the tribes. You are to make braided chains of pure gold cord work for the breastpiece. Fashion 2 gold rings for the breastpiece and attach them to its corners. Then attach the 2 gold cords to the 2 gold rings at the corners of the breastpiece. Attach the other ends of the 2 cords to the 2 filigree settings, and in this way attach them to the ephod's shoulder piece in the front. Make 2 other gold rings and put them at the 2 other corners of the breastpiece, and on the edge that is next to the inner border of the ephod. Make 2 more gold rings and attach them to the bottom of the ephod's 2 shoulder pieces in front on its front, close to its seam. And above the ephod's woven waistband, the craftsmen are to tie the breastpiece from its rings to the rings of the ephod with a cord of blue yarn, so that the breastpiece is above the ephod's waistband and does not come loose from the ephod. Whenever he enters the sanctuary, Aaron is to carry the names of Israel's sons over his heart on the breastpiece for decisions, as a continual reminder before the Lord. Place the Urim and Thummim in the breastpiece for decisions, so that they will also be over Aaron's heart whenever he comes before the Lord. Aaron will continually carry the means of decisions for the Israelites over his heart before the Lord. You are to make the robe of the ephod entirely of blue yarn. There should be an opening at its top in the center of it. Around the opening there should be a woven collar with an opening like that of body armor, so that it does not tear. Make pomegranates of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn on its lower hem and around it and all around it. Put gold bells between them and all the way around, so that the gold bells and the pomegranates alternate around the lower hem of the robe. The robe must be worn by Aaron whenever he ministers, and its sound will be heard when he enters the sanctuary before the Lord and when he exits, so that he does not die. You are to make a pure gold medallion and engrave it like the engraving of a seal, holy to the Lord. Fasten it to a cord of blue yarn so it can be placed on the turban. The medallion is to be on the front of the turban. It will be on Aaron's forehead, so that Aaron may bear the guilt connected with the holy offerings that the Israelites consecrate as all their holy gifts. It is always to be on his forehead, so that he may find acceptance with the Lord. You are to weave the tunic of fine linen, make a turban of fine linen, and make an embroidered sash. Make tunics, sashes, and headbands for Aaron's sons to give them glory and beauty. Put these on your brother Aaron and his sons, then anoint, ordain, and consecrate them, so that they may serve me as priests. Make them linen undergarments to cover their naked bodies. They must extend from the waist to the thighs. These must be worn by Aaron and his sons whenever they enter the tent of meeting or approach the altar to minister in the sanctuary area, so that they do not incur guilt and die. This is to be a permanent statute for Aaron and his sons for his future descendants. So, before I get started with my analysis of the chapter, I've linked a video down below that you can click and go watch, which gives you a visual representation of what you've just heard. Because I know sometimes reading explanations and seeing the visuals of the explanations that we've read can be two totally and entirely different things. So check out that video if you have the time. It's only 7 minutes. You can skip through it and see what you like to see. But we see a few different pieces of clothing. First, we see the priestly garments that they are supposed to make. God tells Moses, yeah, these are the instructions for the priestly garments that I'm going to tell you to make and give to the people who are built to make them for the priest. And then after we see the priestly garments, we see the 2 stones that's going to have the names of Israel on them. Let me check. We see the ephod, and it's going to have the 2 onyx stones on both sides. If you don't know what an onyx stone looks like, there it is, right here, picture of it. It's going to have 2 onyx stones on both sides that they wear with all the names of the tribes of Israel on it. And the 2 shoulder pieces on there. And then we see that it should be on Aaron as a reminder to the Lord. so that it reminds God of the children of Israel. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that God's gonna, oh my goodness, he forgot who the children of Israel were. God's not gonna forget them, but it just serves as a reminder, as a visual reminder, not only to the priest, but to those who see the priest, of the children of Israel. So when it says as a reminder to the Lord, it's not literally meaning God's gonna forget who they are, but I know you knew that already. So now we see the breastplate, and we see that you have to put all the names of the tribes of Israel on these breastplates. It's going to be a carnelian, a topaz, an emerald, a turquoise, a sapphire, a diamond, a jacinth, a agate, an amethyst, a beryl, another onyx, and a jasper. And all of these would have their names in gold filigree. These 12 stones are to correspond with the 12 names of the children of Israel. So I'm guessing is going to go first for first, second for second. That's my guess. So I'm guessing the carnelian is for Reuben, and then the jasper at the final is for Benjamin. Don't take me on that, but I believe it's going in order from oldest to youngest, but we'll see. I don't know. I believe it is though. So that's where I take it. So he's supposed to wear this breastplate all the times. It's going to be fashioned to him with gold fashioned to his chest, near his heart, and he's supposed to wear the names of Israel over his heart for decisions as a continual reminder before the Lord. And again, another reminder before the Lord. Again, it's not like God's going to forget and be like, oh wow, this breastpiece just reminded me, but it's representation of reminders to the Lord. And it brings him Aaron, the priest at the time, soon to be after Aaron is Eleazar, but it brings him to God with reverence and respect with the things that God told him to bring. So as a reminder to the Lord of who they are. And then we see the robe, which is another thing made of yarn. This one is made of only blue yarn though. Everything else was scarlet, gold filigree, scarlet, red, gold, and blue yarn, scarlet, purple, and blue yarn, and red and golden yarn all together. But this one is just blue yarn, and only Aaron is supposed to have this one. He's the only one that's supposed to wear this robe. At the bottom, he has bells, and he has to wear it in the sanctuary. So at the lower hem of his garment has to be the bell so that they can hear if he dies in there. Because verse 35 says, this must be worn by Aaron whenever he ministers, and its sound will be heard when he enters the sanctuary before the Lord and when he exits, so he does not die. So he enters the presence of the Lord. They can hear him from the inside. If he's walking around, let's say that Aaron was in sin, he could die before the Lord and they would have to pull his body out because nobody could go into God's presence in the sanctuary of the Lord. So they use those bells at the bottom with the pomegranates of scarlet blue and purple yarn so that they could hear when he's walking around in the sanctuary of the Lord. Because if they didn't hear him walking around because of those bells, that means he died. Because why would he die though? That's the real question. The answer to that question is simple. Remember back in it was past chapters, I believe, or actually we're about to get into that. I've been reading ahead. We're going to see that Moses asked to see God's face, if we have already seen it, forgive me, I've forgotten. But we see that Moses asked God to see his face, see him face to face, and God tells him that he cannot see him because no one can see his face, otherwise they would surely die, because God is holy and we are not. So God walks by, covers him in the crack of a wall, crack of a boulder, and then when he passes by, Moses sees the back of God. And so going into God's presence was a holy act. If somebody walked into his presence without being purified and sanctified and cleansed, they would die because they're not holy. They cannot stand by what is holy. Just like when God told them not to touch a mountain, otherwise those things had to be put to death, or that they would surely die. Because of God's holy standard, and because man is not as holy as God, certain precautions had to be taken in place before you could go in the presence of God. Now we have Christ in our heart, but are we even living holy is the question, because if you're not living holy, does Christ really live in your heart? That's another question for you. But then we go to the turban. The turban is worn on his head with a pure gold engraving around his head, tied with blue yarn, with the engraving named Holy to the Lord. See, he has to be set apart, holy to the Lord, when he walks into the place. And so it goes on Aaron's forehead, and that so that he may bear the guilt with the holy offerings that the Israelites consecrate. It is always to be on his forehead, so that he may find acceptance with the Lord. Like I said, so that he will be found holy and acceptable to the Lord. He's bearing all the weight of the guilt connected to the Israelites with this, connected with the holy offerings from this headband that's inscribed holy to the Lord. Every time he walks into the Lord's sanctuary, he's wearing it. Every time he's giving offerings, he's wearing it. Reminder of the guilt of the holy offerings. And then they have them make other priestly garments for all the other priests, and all. Aaron is the high priest, and then are all the other priests that get tunics made for them and sashes, all with beauty, as it says here in verse 40. It says, make tunics and sashes and headbands for Aaron's sons and give them glory and beauty. So these were beautiful pieces of clothing. These weren't just plain old pieces of clothing that we could possibly wear, like minister just wearing a blue shirt. No, these were pieces imbued with beauty and imbued with designs of beauty. And that's why I say we'll never truly know what they officially look like, or truly know or understand or visualize every single thing that is described here, especially like the priestly garments imbued with beauty. What does imbued with glory and beauty mean? It can look like many different things to many different people, but it's good to get a sort of kind of visualization of it and think about it in your head. So that's what they get. They make them linen undergarments and these different things. And then verse 43 is a clincher right here. These must be worn by Aaron and his sons whenever they enter the tent of meeting or approach the altar to minister in the sanctuary area, so that they do not incur guilt and die. This is a permanent statute for Aaron and his descendants. So every priest, before they could minister, had to wear these their priestly clothing in order to minister. And so that should be like a sign for us. Before we minister, before we do anything, are we wearing the full armor of God before we do these things? Are we being represented? Are we wearing our shields of, do we have our shields of faith? Do we have our swords in hand? Do we have our belts of truth? Do we have our feet ready with the gospel? Do we have the blessed breastplate of righteousness on? Do we have all these things on before we go out and minister? Because if you don't, you're not ministering with the full protection of God on you, and Satan and his demons can come after you and cause you to become guilty for something. So be sure to put on the full armor of God when you go out to minister. Be like the priest, wearing all that they needed to wear in order to represent God correctly. This has been the episode. So yeah, Exodus chapter 40, chapter 28, 43 verses in this chapter. And now for a little bit of a surprise. I have a song that's out. There's a link down below. You can click it to go listen to this song. This is the first song I ever put out. It's instrumental music. How did I get on this path? I might save that for another episode. Actually, I will. So we'll save that for another episode. But yeah, I have music out now. I have one song. It's just one single called The Church of God. I did not name the song. I asked one of my friends to name it. His name is Andrew. Andrew, thank you for naming the song. And yeah, you can go listen to it now. All right, God bless you. Have a blessed night or a blessed day whenever you listen to this. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with somebody, and see you on the next one.